Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button to support the channel, and if you're new here, subscribe for daily Washington Commanders news, rumors, and insider breakdowns all year long. Now let's get into it. The Washington Commanders just made another move to bolster their defensive line, officially signing veteran defensive tackle Carl Davis. But here's the question: does this move actually matter? With major questions still swirling around this Commanders defense, after a shaky 2024 performance, some believe this signing is more depth filler than impact play. Others think it's a sign that Adam Peters is still tinkering with the roster ahead of a potentially aggressive late offseason move. Today, we're breaking down what this signing means, why it may not be enough, and how it fits into Washington's bigger defensive puzzle heading into 2025. Let's start with the basics. Carl Davis, 33, is a journeyman defensive tackle who's been around the NFL block since 2015. A third-round pick by the Ravens out of Iowa, Davis has had stops in Cleveland, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, New England, Seattle, and most recently, Dallas before finding his way to Washington last October. He bounced between the Commanders' practice squad and active roster in 2024, appearing in just 3 games and recording 3 tackles. Not flashy numbers, but Davis brings veteran presence, run-stuffing experience, and scheme familiarity, especially under new defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr., who values rotation-heavy fronts. At 6'5", 320 pounds, Davis is a massive presence in the middle. While he's not expected to play starter-level snaps, he can help eat space and play a supporting role behind names like Darren Payne, Javon Kinlaw, and Johnny Newton. But here's the real question. Fans are asking. Let's be honest, Carl Davis is not a needle mover. He's a depth piece. He's a locker room guy. He's not going to single-handedly elevate a unit that ranked 29th in EPA per play and 30th in first downs allowed in 2024. The Commanders' defense struggled mightily last year, even while the offense lit up scoreboards. Despite finishing as the NFL's 5th highest scoring offense, the defense couldn't hold up its end of the bargain, something that cost Washington dearly in late-game situations, and especially in the postseason. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn know that. That's why they spent draft capital on Trey Amos, added Jonathan Jones in free agency, and brought in rotational edge rushers like Deotrick Wise Jr. and Jacob Martin. But analysts like Bradley Locker from PFF still question whether this defense has improved enough to contend with the NFC's top dogs. Locker pointed out that Kinlaw's PFF grade was just 53.4 last year, and both Wise and Martin had sub-70 pass rushing grades. Darren Payne, despite his $26 million cap hit, hasn't played at a Pro Bowl level since 2022. So no, signing Carl Davis doesn't suddenly fix this unit, but it might say something else. This move tells us that the front office is still tinkering. Adam Peters isn't done. This is the kind of signing you make when you want to keep options open. When you're preparing for training camp battles, when you're quietly bracing for potential injuries or unexpected moves on the horizon. Don't forget, the Commanders saved over $14 million in cap space this offseason by moving on from veterans like Jonathan Allen. They're 1 or 2 injuries away from needing guys like Carl Davis to play meaningful snaps. And with rumors still swirling about a potential splash trade, cough, Trey Hendrickson, cough, this move might just be a prelude to something bigger. In fact, there are 2 ways to look at this. Washington is comfortable with their current defensive nucleus, and Carl Davis is simply insurance. Washington knows they still have holes, and they're making low-risk moves while waiting for the right opportunity to swing big. Either way, it signals that the pressure is still on this unit. With Davis now officially back in the building, here's how the interior defensive line depth chart is shaping up. Darren Payne, the presumed leader, but under a huge microscope in 2025. Javon Kinlaw, big upside, but a major injury risk. Johnny Newton, rookie second-rounder with starter potential. Carl Davis, veteran depth. Ben Stiller, Fedarian Mathis, and potentially undrafted rookies. All battling for final roster spots. That's a decent group, but far from elite. And the bigger story here isn't about Davis, it's about Darren Payne. Because this signing only amplifies what we said earlier this week. 2025 is a career-defining season for Payne. If he doesn't return to his disruptive 2022 form, he could be cut to save over $14 million in 2026. That's the business reality under Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. Payne has to lead this group, not just by name, but by example. And with the defense still looking like the most questionable unit on the team, every single roster spot matters. That's why even a small move like bringing back Carl Davis is worth watching. No one expected the Commanders to go from rock bottom to a Super Bowl contender in just one season. A rookie QB, a rookie head coach, a new front office, a roster overhauled from the trenches to the secondary. And yet, Dan Quinn's team shocked the league. They won 12 games, took down the NFC East, and came this close to the Lombardi. But the 2025 season isn't about celebrating last year's success. It's about proving it wasn't a fluke. And that's where the national spotlight turns into a magnifying glass. When you win big, everyone wants to figure out why, and whether it's sustainable. According to Sharp Football, Washington's 2024 season featured the best fourth down conversion rate in NFL history, 87%. That's 20 of 23 fourth downs converted. Let that sink in. The 2018 Saints, 81%. The 2021 Eagles, 78%. The Commanders weren't just successful, they were clinical, and it wasn't random. 16 of those attempts were short yardage plays, 4th and 1s and 4th and 2s. Dan Quinn wasn't throwing darts in the dark. These were calculated, aggressive, and efficient decisions. And Jayden Daniels. He was the cheat code. His legs kept drives alive, extended red zone possessions, and deflated opposing defenses. He turned 4th down into a weapon. Not a gamble. But here comes the caution tape. Ben Solak of ESPN dug deep into the numbers. And here's the kicker. Out of 798 team seasons analyzed since the stat's inception, only 13 teams have converted 73% or more on 4th down with at least 15 attempts. That's 1.6% of all teams ever. What Washington did? It's not just rare. It's historic. And Solak isn't saying they'll fall off a cliff. He's saying, regression is inevitable. The only question is how steep it will be, and whether it'll cost them games. Remember this stat. 23.7% of Washington's total points in 2024 came on drives that included a 4th down conversion. That's the 5th highest mark this century. So even if you lose just 5 of those conversions in 2025, that could swing 3, 4, maybe even 5 games in the standings. Now let's pump the brakes. Regression? Sure, it's math. It's logic. It's football. But not all 4th downs are created equal. If Washington converts fewer of them in 2025, but still finds ways to finish drives, adjust play calling, or lean more on their upgraded personnel, the impact might be minimal. And that's the key word. Context. This isn't a situation where failure on 4th down equals guaranteed losses. But the Commanders did rely on that efficiency more than almost any team in recent memory. Which means Dan Quinn and offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury can't just run it back and hope for the same results. They need counters. Plan Bs. Ways to finish drives that don't require Daniels pulling a rabbit out of a hat every time. But here's what gives fans confidence. Jayden Daniels is still QB1, and he's only getting better. The offensive line has been fortified with Tunsil at left tackle and additional depth across the board, the play-calling structure. Kingsbury's system remains intact. The weaponry, from Debo to McLaurin to McCaffrey and the tight ends, is deeper and more versatile. And while the 4th down magic might fade, the team itself might not need it as much. That's the part Solak and other analysts sometimes overlook. Washington might not need to be historic on 4th down in 2025 to match or even exceed last year's success. If Daniels becomes more efficient on early downs, if the run game picks up with a healthy room, if the defense stiffens just enough, the Commanders could actually win more games even with fewer heroics. And that brings us to the bigger philosophical question. What's progress for this team? Would a 10-7 season against tougher opponents, followed by another NFC title game appearance, be an improvement? If Daniel the stats regress slightly, but the team's win total stays the same, is that a good year? These are the kinds of debates we'll be having all season long. Because 2025 isn't about surprising people anymore, it's about validating the hype. The Commanders have moved from rebuilding to contending to potentially sustaining. And with sustainability comes scrutiny. So let's bring it back. To you, Commanders fans, do you think signing Carl Davis is a sign of confidence or concern? Is this just smart roster management, or does it show the front office knows they still have work to do on defense? And most importantly, do you believe this Commanders defense can hold its own in 2025, or does Adam Peters still need to make one more splash? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Commanders HQ, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a breakdown of all things burgundy and gold. Until next time, HTTC, and we'll see you back here soon.